A mere year ago, the International Monetary Fund released a statement saying that Burma, or Myanmar, has a chance to become, quote, the next economic frontier in Asia. However, Myanmar can only realize its potential if it turns its rich natural resources, young labor force, and proximity to some of the most dynamic economies in the world to its advantage. While the lack of funds in Burma might be considered the overall cause of the issues, this simply isn't true. As far as foreign direct investment is concerned, Burma reached a record high in 2010 through 2011 of almost $20 billion. That's more than the same figure in the same year for Southeast Asia's latest investment darling, Vietnam. These facts suggest that Burma's exposure to trade and foreign direct investment is higher today than ever before, and even higher than some comparable Southeast Asian countries. And at any rate, if we've learned anything from the past, just throwing money at an issue won't solve it. So then, what is the cause of the problems Myanmar faces? Conflict. The internal conflict in Burma is the longest ongoing war in the world, and began shortly after the country's independence in 1948 from the United Kingdom. Successive central governments of Burma, or Myanmar, have fought a myriad of ethnic and political rebellions, with between 5,000 and 10,000 killed in between 2011 and 2012. More than 200,000 have lost their lives in this conflict since it began back in 1948. Recently, around 25 different ethnic groups have agreed to ceasefires within the military government. In January 2012, the Myanmar government announced a ceasefire agreement with Karen rebels. The ceasefire includes an agreement that mandates open communication between the government and Karen rebels, as well as allowing safe passage for Karen rebels in the country. The Myanmar government has given amnesty to over 6,000 Karen prisoners and reduced the sentences of 38,000 prisoners. A peace agreement between the Karen and Burmese government is one of the primary demands made by Western countries before economic sanctions can be lifted. Mien Kon Yang, the leader of the pro-democracy uprisings in 1988, said upon his release from Tayet prison, "We need peace across the country immediately. Then, we can work towards building national reconciliation." Specifically, he called for peace in ethnic minority areas and the release of all political prisoners who remain incarcerated. These ideas are quite valid, and in order to maintain peace in Myanmar, the government merely needs to take a few short steps. The overall condition of the government is improving. There have been significant political changes in Burma over the past year and a half. Aung San Suu Kyi, a democratic leader in Myanmar, is now a member of parliament. Protests and unions have become legal, and press freedoms have substantially increased. Following the partial lifting of sanctions, investigators are ready to engage. An ideal situation would be where ethnic groups are given the right to govern themselves, as it was promised at the time Myanmar gained independence, allowing the different ethnic regions to gather themselves, limited only by a constitution, where this constitution would be impartial to any of the particular conflicting ethnic groups' needs or wants. If we promise to release sanctions fully once Myanmar reaches acceptable and fair peace agreements with the multiple ethnic groups inside of it, and also promise to help it develop as a country, the government should quickly accept, solving the main problems and allowing us to approach solutions to other problems within this country. However, there are still hurdles that we will have to navigate. One of these hurdles that we will have to navigate is reforming the budget that is currently in place. The budget currently in place is inefficient and will only hinder the country's growth economically. It is unnecessary for military spending in the country to be greater than 50%, considering that Myanmar does not really have any international enemies. These funds would be best used in areas that need it most, like healthcare, education, and infrastructure such as roads, buildings, and telecommunications. Infrastructure in Burma is particularly poor. With improved infrastructure, natural resources will become more readily available for use by companies and investors. Once the resources start selling on the market, more money will enter the country. With this money, the government can begin to deal with other problems such as education, literacy rates, and healthcare. The government should also allocate some of the money made to cracking down on one of the world's largest drug trafficking problems, the high opium market. Inadequate infrastructure is a major problem in Myanmar. Myanmar is in desperate need of improvements to its failing infrastructure: roads, ports, dams, electricity, and access to clean water. Currently, 2 large ports are already under construction. However, much needs to be done. This is a challenge for investors, but also is a tremendous opportunity, and Thai, Chinese, and Japanese ventures are already competing and trying to line up future projects and help be the companies that will rebuild the industry. Basic infrastructure projects with shorter timeframes are likely to face lower regulatory and contract risks, as they will have less exposure to changing regulations, generally have less environmental impact, and are typically perceived as benefiting local communities. Such projects include road construction, river dredging, and the building of river shipping facilities. Once these are built, rail, port, and dam projects are likely to face significant regulatory and contract risks due to their longer exposure to the shifting regulatory environment, greater likelihood of attracting environmental protests, and the fact that most such projects to date have not been seen in the interests of Burma. Improved infrastructure will help instill confidence in investors and help the transportation of goods and resources across Myanmar. Myanmar is a very resource-rich place, with large untapped sources of coal and some oil, as well as other natural resources like wood, but has not been able to take advantage of these resources due to their troubled infrastructure issues. Now, with improved infrastructure, Myanmar will be well on its way to becoming a larger economic force in Southeast Asia. With this, Myanmar will be able to shift its focuses and newfound wealth from growing industries to healthcare, its drug program, education, literacy rates, and into developing their new government. Considering the high diversity and quantity of natural resources that exist in Myanmar, along with expert opinions on the new future of Myanmar's economy, we can conclude that Myanmar has a high potential of developing to a large economy so long as peace between the various ethnic groups and government can be reached. The future is bright for Myanmar. We just have to help it get there.